gone are the days of competition. It has
Yeah.
to be collaboration. With collaboration, you are using less resources to increase the pie versus competing to take more of that small pie.
If you're not happy about a certain situation, whether it's a person in your environment, it's a project, it's a program, or the opportunity, or just your own organization, you have to understand that you're here for a reason. US, for some reason, the number one spot of receiving international students, especially from India, which is now beaten China as well.
Why so? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good midnight. Because we don't know who is watching us at what point of time. So let me address everyone. And then most of our audience is English speaking or English speaking, Gen Z and Alpha. But for us, the core is students. As I always say, if students are happy, everyone is happy. Without any ado, let me introduce Mr. Vivek Mansukhani. He's head of Institute of International Education, India. He's a director, and representing it for like almost half a decade more than that. But as I always do, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Saurabh. It's such a pleasure to be here. And what a fabulous office you have. I knew it was stunning, but thank you for walking me around. It's just amazing. It's got a youthful energy and the colors, the people, the energy. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's why, very fortunate to be part of the industry, which is not only giving us money and fame and popularity, but the real thing, the impact. Earlier it used to be sound very cliche that, okay, how you can create impact and how you can do your bit to this society. But I always say that if you are passionate about anything and you are around for some time, you will get everything. you know would love to know your journey.
Sure. So I've actually been in the education sector for, I think, now close to 30 years.
Wow.
I started very much with the British Council, which is definitely my alma mater, my first job. And at that stage, I was the scholarships and alumni manager for the British Council, responsible for sending students, both younger and older, to the UK on higher study programs. Primarily managing what was then called the British Chevening Scholarships Program. This was funded by the UK's Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and that was a brand new program, and I was responsible for launching it, so to speak, in India for the very first time in the mid-90s. And this program was very exciting because we were selecting the most dynamic, best, brightest minds around the country and sending them to all kinds of universities, top level, medium level, other level universities across the UK on scholarship programs. We also then launched, apart from master's and PhD programs, something called short-term study programs. So I was curating these programs for young lawyers, young journalists, young corporate leaders, young people working in environment, even the Gurukul scholarships program that would actually take students, or not even students, these were working professionals, to the UK for about 6 weeks of academic attachment at a university, followed by 6 weeks of working in either law firms or in media houses or in corporate entities. So that program became very, very popular. And I also remember I was at the British Council in 1997, which marked the 50 years of India's independence. And we then had the Queen of England actually come down to India. I think that was her last visit. And I had the privilege and the honor of introducing her to many of our Chevening scholars, walking them around, the premises of the British Council. So it was a very exciting, I would say, 7-8 years for me at the British Council, managing this whole network of amazing students and scholars, young and old, from India going to the UK. And I think I was also responsible for setting up what was called the Alumni Network. So for the very first time, the British Council Alumni Network, ABS it was called at that time, Association of British Scholars. So that brought together a lot of people who had obviously graduated from the UK, come back to India, and had really fond memories of studying and living in the UK. So that was my first stint working in the education sector.
And when was this? Like which year?
This was roughly from 93 to 2001. Yeah, those 7-8 years. Although I started my journey in Calcutta. I'm originally from Calcutta. I was born and brought up there. And I moved to Delhi in 93, and that was my first job. I was already working with the British Council in Calcutta, but I was doing other work, like projects-related work, working on UK government projects, which is also very exciting. But then I moved here on a promotion to Delhi, and I've been here ever since.
If I go beyond, or I would say before 1903, I
Yeah,
would love to have a quick understanding of your learning about, okay, you were a kid from Calcutta,
that's right.
about your education, about your early days, like I know we are like there we have lots of things to discuss, but I firmly believe that if you don't get to know who we are talking and their
Yeah,
background, there are lots of perception we everyone create. I mean, like you mentioned, you're from Calcutta. I never thought that you were from Calcutta. Not that we have met many times, but wherever we have met, I'm like, okay, quintessential Delhi South Delhi, scholar. But good to know that you're from Calcutta. So, what's your journey till Delhi and your education background, your family,
sure.
yourself?
Sure. So I'm actually very grateful that I grew up in Calcutta because I think Calcutta is a cultural educational hub.
Hmm.
I went to the best school there, I think, a Jesuit school called St. Xavier's. Did
Oh.
my education there, and then had the good fortune in my plus two of going to another wonderful school called St. James's School to do my Delhi board at ISC. And there is where I met one of my mentors, early mentor, Professor John Mason, who was our headmaster at St. James. And he got me very involved in extracurricular activities. So in terms of that's where my passion for theater grew. So
Hmm.
I also do a lot of theater work in my spare time. So I got to know about elocution and dramatics and debating. And, I was the house captain there. So that's where I think I really was able to find my true identity. That apart from whatever I would choose to do as a career, this was certainly going to be a part of my life. So those 2 years were pretty radical, pretty formative for me to help me understand who I was. And then I went on to do a bachelor's in commerce and my chartered accountancy in Calcutta. So I studied that. But I was very clear that I didn't want to really pursue a career in finance or CA. That's just not my scene. Although, I am a Sindhi by birth and Sindhis are supposed to be very good with their money.
Numbers, yeah.
I don't think I'm probably an exception. I'm not so great with money. Um, I think I'm more on the creative side and
Hmm.
the more education side. And those factors really appealed to me. So when I got an opportunity to work at the British Council in Calcutta, I took that up. And that was great. And then I moved here on a promotion in 1993. And I've been here ever since. So that job kind of was continuing very well. I'd been to the UK many times. I'd supported a lot of India-UK collaborations in the education sector. A number of the things that you see nowadays were actually started and germinated at that
Hmm.
point. So I'm very
Hmm.
grateful for that opportunity. Then in 2001, I was headhunted by the Ford Foundation, which is, as you probably know, a very large philanthropic body, a philanthropic organization, headquartered in the US, sorry, in New York, and that's from the Ford Motor Car Company, their philanthropic wing. And they were starting a brand new program called International Fellowships Program. At the turn of the century, they decided that they wanted to do something completely different. Like at the British Council, I was supporting people from, very privileged backgrounds, those who had already accessed good quality education in India and had got admissions to the Oxfords and the Cambridge and the Harvards of the world, whereas they wanted to focus on people from very underrepresented backgrounds, from marginalized backgrounds. So they were launching this program in 22 countries around the world, wherever the Ford Foundation had its offices. And they invested, I think, $420 million in this program. And this was to support students who would traditionally not even know how to apply for a foreign degree, help them to go to the best universities in the world. And it didn't have to be only the US, although the funder was US Ford Foundation. They could study in the UK, in the US, in Canada, any part of the world. And it was a fully funded scholarship. So that was my second stint in the education sector. And I think that was life transforming for me because I was working with, I wouldn't even call them students because there was no upper age limit. In fact, the oldest person we sent was 55 plus. These were people who had faced certain social challenges in their life, socio-economic, physical, geographic, and so on, had probably not even studied their education in English language, had to do it in the vernacular and then train in English. People from lower middle class incomes, people from the village and town background, not from the slick cities, people like that. And this program was very innovative because it helped these students the program helped these students to prepare for 1 year to brush up their English language skills, their IT skills, their academic and research skills. And then we would place them, our team would place them to study at the best universities in the world. So we worked with US agencies, UK, Canada, Australia, all over the world. Some decided to study in India initially because, there were married women who were going back to education after some time. There were people who were sole breadwinners, couldn't go away for too long. So there were all kinds of situations that they were facing. So I also got to travel to a lot of the remote parts of the country. And we also then focused on some of the Bimaru states, as we call them, where the quality of higher education is not the best. We wanted to give those people a chance. And we would meet these amazingly talented people who were very bright, but this didn't have the academic background qualification or the economic wherewithal to study internationally. And then we would support them on this program. So in about 10 years, the program supported 330 fellows from India and about 4,000 fellows worldwide. So I'm really fortunate to have been part of this groundbreaking program, I think, which provided access to people who normally would not get selected for the top, Rhodes scholarships and the Chevening scholarships and the INLACs and, all these Fulbright programs and so on. And all these people have come back to India, pretty much all of them, and are contributing a lot, whether it's in media, academia, civil society, government, education, health projects. So that was my second experience, a
And
very different
this was from
experience.
201 till 2011.
2001 to 2013. Yeah,
Very interesting. Quick one, and I might be, diverting a bit.
sure.
Why foundation like Ford or, Apple Foundation or probably, Bill and Melinda
Melinda Gates, yeah.
Melinda Gates, foundation. Why they do all this?
I think because that they want to make a difference. They want to really reach out to people who normally don't get a voice, to sit on a table like we are today and have that confidence, have that knowledge, that skill, that experience to be able to present their voice. So I think supporting the underdog is what a lot of these philanthropies do, because there are many foundations and governments that would support the brightest minds to go. And what happens sometimes to these brightest minds, they don't necessarily come back to their home country. Whereas these programs support people who are already committed. They're already doing good work in education, in human rights, in health systems, and they have families back home, and they will definitely come back. So it's trying to give these people an opportunity who otherwise don't get that.
But still, see, they are okay, as someone like, so I am a capitalist,
Sure.
right? And I have no qualms about, making money in the education sector, because there are lots of people who believe, oh, education, people are not meant to make money or they
Right.
can't be capitalist, But I have a firm belief that anything, even to run this podcast, you need money. And even to spread best of your intended message, you need to have distribution, you need to have capital or marketing funds around that, right? So when it comes to philanthropy and these foundation, I'm sure they have best of the intent and they have a CSR aspect, but there's something beyond that.
I just think it's the charity. I think it's the ability to want to help people who normally don't get help. In fact, this program proved that non-traditional students can also excel. It's just not people who've been to the best quality education can go and shine at a Harvard or an Oxford. It's people from non-traditional backgrounds. What they bring from their own experience is something that a rich kid may not be able to provide necessarily. And I mean, tell me, why would a philanthropy invest, say, $100,000 in one student
Right.
to go and study abroad and for 2 years, 3 years, support that person with no expectation? It wasn't as though they were expecting people to go and work for the Ford Foundation
Right.
or contribute in any way. In fact, they could even study or continue to live in the US or UK for a few years and then come back. There was no contract binding. So I think that's what explains the generosity of some of these foundations, which are truly, truly wanting to make a difference and wanting to also not make that person feel small. Because it's okay if I say I want to support you from a small town in India to come to Delhi and study at Delhi University, and I'll pay you your 20,000 rupees a year because fees kuch hota nahi hai that much. But imagine sending you to Harvard or to Oxford and preparing you for 1 year and then spending that kind of money over 3 years with no expectation. I think it's about inclusivity. It's about
Inclusivity.
promoting diversity. It also helps the campuses. Of course, the universities were making money because they were getting full fees, right?
Mm.
Although some of them were so excited by the program that they
Mm,
decided to even
scholarship.
offer scholarships and part,
Mm.
so we had these strategic university partners, which would not only reduce some of the fees, but they would
Mm.
welcome these students, give them that special hand-holding,
Mm.
language teaching, IT teaching, etc., and really look after them. I think it was a path making program in many ways. When the program ended, Saurabh, I went around to other foundations in India, to corporates, and said, this is a great model. Would you guys like to, because we can continue the program. The Ford
Mm.
Foundation money is not going to run forever. It
Right.
was a pilot program for 10 years. But nobody seemed to want to invest that kind of money. And that kind of
Mm.
money, you can sponsor an entire village education for 5,000 kids, right? Which
Mm.
is great. That's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
But I think given the fact that India is now wanting to become this Vishwa Guru and
Mm.
attract international talent of universities and people, it really needs to reach out to, these affirmative action
Mm.
groups. I know the government here also has a number of programs which support scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, backward area people. But many of these grants and scholarships don't get used.
Mm.
They're not
Or not
even
even reach or
they don't even reach
right.
them. The funds are lying. And even if they reach, so if a student from a backward area
Mm.
comes to, say, a Delhi to study, he or she might be struggling with language skills and they eventually even drop out.
Mm.
Whereas this program ensured that there was a lot of hand holding, a lot of support,
Mm.
and we made sure that the students succeeded eventually. So that's
Mm.
the difference in the approach. I
Mm.
think that some of these international players and these
Mm.
philanthropies bring to the table. So there's a lot to learn from.
In fact, this is where what I call that when you dream big and don't feel that it will not come to true because they are foundations, they are people. And I see, I purposely did this to get those because lots of people, I tell you, very funny incident
Hmm.
last year. So we introduced living scholarship,
Okay.
2 years back, university living scholarship. In the first year, you know, I was surprised. My team was surprised that here we are doling out around 10,000, 20,000 pounds. I won't say without expectation,
Hmm.
right? But still with right intent that anyone who booked through University Living got an opportunity to apply for scholarship and what they need to do. So thesis is that there are lots of scholarship for bright students, or I would say academically strong student. But what about students who have probably had a bad year?
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
probably
Hmm.
someone who need extra hand to get sponsored for their accommodation or living expenses, as we call it. We have extra interest. We did living scholarship to make people talk about living, and media did amazing. Lots of media published that okay, living scholarship there was nothing like that. But it was so surprising that very few people applied in the first year.
I see.
And we're like, why? And then we realize, okay, there are lots of marketing gimmick around scholarship. People launch, they don't provide, or they try to give it to their known, and there are lots of gray area around that. And this was when, because we were very clear that we did it with Northampton University, being
Right.
my being our alma mater. So we did it with them, and it became really well. But still, we struggled to, probably we got around 300 400 people applying. Of course, it was first year, we need to market well. Second, it blew out, right? But still, what the inside we realized that students feel
Hmm.
that they will not get it.
Right.
It's not meant for them. There
Right.
must be some catch,
Sure.
but this is what I want to emphasize, that they are foundation, they are companies. If you reach out, there are lots of scholarship, even by Indian corporate houses, by Shivnings, and DFID is what,
Yeah.
before this Lakshmi was here, and she's a Shivning
Shh.
scholar.
Yes,
So
yes. Her husband, actually, and I sent him on the scholarship.
I guess she's also a Shivning scholar.
She went, I think, on
She,
a DFID scholarship.
so she got both. You're right.
She
You're
got
right.
both.
She
Yeah,
got
yeah.
Chiefening as well as Chiefening as well as DFID.
DFID.
DFID. And this is what In fact, I have a very student desk of scholarship because
Mm.
we are on to admission and
Mm.
application. But last few weeks, it's making me so much you know exciting to read more about scholarship, because
Yeah.
even I have the same concept that there must be some catch, there must be some
Mm.
vested interest, there must be something or who only get to their known people. But no, there are lots of scholarships, lots of finance assistance out there. You only and only need to dream big and work for your dreams and seek assistance. There are enough people who can help achieve your dreams.
Yeah.
back to your story. So 2013 till like part of Ford Foundation. What next?
Wrapped up. So, that program wrapped up in 2013. I was in New York. We were having a huge closing event. We brought out a beautiful book called Open Doors, particularly for the India program. And I'd love to give you a copy of that sometime, which captures the story of many of these fellows that we sent from India,
Wow.
where they went to study, what kind of challenges they faced going to an international setting for the first time, how they networked with international faculty, students, what did they learn there. In fact, they started learning more about themselves. So
Hmm.
that's one advantage of
Totally.
going abroad. It's not about you go abroad and get a fantastic degree. And this wasn't a career advancement scholarship. It was more of a
Hmm.
social justice advancement scholarship. Because the program, to answer your question again, the foundation believed that these people would come back and lead their communities out of their suffering. They
Ah.
would become role models for other students to also want to continue studying. They would come and make a difference. Like, if you study human rights in international context, you can come and deal with human rights issues back in your home country or education issues. So it was very exciting program, and I was wondering what to do next. In fact, I was thinking of taking a sabbatical, maybe doing more of my theater work because I run a theater company called Scene Stealers. I said 6 months, I'm just going to do some fun stuff and then let me see what comes along. And lo and behold, the British Council called me and said, "We have a job for you." I said, "Okay." Again, education. It said, "No, this time we want you to be our director for arts and culture." So I said, but I've never really worked in that area as a professional administrator, arts administrator. I've always been a theater actor and director. So they said, "I think you'll be great for the job." So I was interviewed by all the top people at that time. And within a couple of weeks, I was on as the director, arts and culture, India, for British Council. So that was a role I did from 2013 to about 2017. Very exciting, going back to, let's say, my alma mater, as I said. Of course, all very new people, new systems, new processes, but it was fabulous learning for me. So I learned a lot about visual arts, performing arts, partnerships between UK and India. It also included education scholarships because I was managing the Charles Wallace India Trust Fellowships, which was for students from India who were actually artists to go and study in the UK on both short term and long term. So there was an education component to that as well. And that program kind of culminated in 2017 with the UK India Year of Culture. By now, it was like, what was it, more than that, 70 years of India's independence in 2017. So I
Oh.
was there when there was 50th year, and I was
Wow.
back again in the
Wow.
70th year. So very exciting times, great colleagues in the UK, in India. Reconnecting with the UK was fabulous for me. I went back a few times to Scotland, to England, to the Edinburgh Festival. It was a remarkable time. So yes, I took let's say, a 4-year gap to pursue. I really wanted to do arts, and I ended up working professionally in the arts for 4 years.
I know some of your background. I'm taking a liberty.
Yeah.
Do you believe in manifestation, or because it seems that you've been driving your career at a time the way you want to? Is
Hmm.
it manifestation? Is it like what is the secret? What is that?
I certainly believe
X
in
factor.
yeah, I certainly believe in manifesting one's dreams and one's aspirations. But I think in my journey, I've actually never really applied for a job. All the jobs that I've taken have somehow landed into my lap. So maybe subconsciously I've been wanting to do that. So subconsciously I was maybe a little exhausted at the British Council dealing with, the brightest and the best who just need to go for one more scholarship. And I was wanting to help people who were maybe less advantaged,
Hmm.
and the Ford Foundation job kind of landed with
Hmm.
me. And when I wanted to take a break from the Ford Foundation after it ended, I wanted to do theater. The arts job landed with me. And when that program was finishing and I was kind of missing education again, the IIE job kind of landed in my plate. So I was told that the current director at the Indian Institute of International Education in India was moving out of Delhi. And she said, "I think you would be a great successor. Would you be interested?" And that's how I applied for the IIE job. And that's where I am since 2017.
We'll come to IIE because
Sure.
there are lots of things which we can talk about. But going back to arts and culture, and you know so again, as we always say, that we are doing it for people to learn from people who've been in the education industry for last many years, or probably even they have spent whatever time they have spent, but how we can learn from their journey. So as you mentioned that all the jobs have been landed on your lap,
Hmm.
and of course, but you've been very humble, but what are those skills you've been building on yourself? Probably it's communication, it's networking, it's,
Right.
I mean, there's some, I mean, it's not that anyone can get a direct British
I
Council
agree.
administrative
I
director.
agree.
So what are the skills or the way you have dealing with or learning which made you stand out? And this is what those people who are part of the industry for 5 years, 10 years, or want to be part of the industry, or
Yeah.
anyone who are planning to go abroad. And it's so refreshing that lots of people are going and they are very clear they want to come back and make a difference. You know, so what will be your advice to those people?
Yeah, so if I was to analyze myself and kind of what kind of skills I've picked up working in these primarily 3 or 4 organizations that I worked with in my career, I would definitely think strategizing and planning is very, very important. And that brings my theater background, because in theater, you have to rehearse till you're ready to go on stage. So, and anyone who's worked with me, even in my jobs, in my career, so I like to plan a lot, detailed planning, like 80 hours of planning for an 8-minute presentation, maybe, or whatever it might be. I'm just putting that in a random context. So I think as a planner, as a strategist, looking at all the things that could happen, like a SWOT analysis of every situation, uh, putting it down on paper, planning exactly who will do what, allocating responsibility. Teamwork is something I've really learned, and it's about respecting everyone who may be doing just 1% of the role, whereas someone else is doing 50%. Taking everyone along together is a very important aspect. Everyone should be committed to that one goal. There's a concept called many in body, one in mind. I really kind of apply that in every situation, whether it's my work in the education or in theater. That's one area. Of course, there are other skills like communication skills, presentation skills. So I learned a lot of that when I was at the British Council, because I used to do these pre-departure briefings for students, both younger and older, solving their crisis. So it's being prepared. It's being prepared to be able to answer any and every kind of situation. Then also in the Ford Foundation, because we had these students coming from very remote areas, their family members would also come to us and said, "You've sent our person abroad. Now we want to connect with them. Where have you sent them?" So it's also the ability to be able to have a lot of empathy and
Mm.
sympathy, and to go that extra mile. So a job is not a job in as much as I've signed a check. Now you go, Saurabh, and do your best. It's about, Saurabh, are you doing okay? How can I help you? Are you feeling homesick? Do you need any other connections? Are you doing well academically? So it's that extra mile. I think I always offer that in whatever job that I'm doing, whether it's in a scholarship field or in the arts field. It's also about respecting the other individual, whether it's the organization or the person, listening to their viewpoint. So being a good listener, I think, is very important, because it's not all about bringing my side of the story and I want this and I want that. Now, can you just deliver it? But
Mm.
figuring out, because then that's how I learn what you also can contribute to the table. So jointly collaborating, these are skills, critical thinking, analysis, and of course, knowing your subject matter really well. So if I'm
Oh.
sending someone to the US, I should know everything there is to know about the US that you might be likely to ask me. So that's certainly some skills.
Absolutely. Thank you. You mentioned about skill point and why I was smiling because I had the same thought. In many ways we are very different. The way you've been thinking, I've been thinking, but there are a couple of points which I connected with you, like absolute right, the T. Go to that extra mile, and I always say go that extra mile with a smile.
Sure.
Especially when you in a business like us, which about it can be very transactional. You get your booking done and done, right? And we always say that our work doesn't start with or it doesn't end with booking. It starts with that booking happen through us, because till time student not back and they're not happy, because it's all about in education industry and especially in our space, students are happy, we are happy, not the other way around. And if students is have a good experience,
Mhm.
it's a win-win for everyone, because then they're gonna come and they're gonna talk to 10 people, their good, bad, ugly experiences. So if you want to grow in this industry, education space, higher education ed, you need to be empathic, as you mentioned. You need to put yourself in their shoe and think that for you, that student might be another student or a hundredth student or 1,000 student, but for that student, they're going for a first time. So we don't need to be impatient, and we need to not need to assume that ये तो आसान है, सबको पता है, हमें पता है तो पता ही होगा. No, even those one advice. I mean, I'm going back to my story. If someone would have told me that when you're going abroad, book your accommodation
Yeah.
and don't just go and look.
Mm.
It would have saved me lots of money, lots of those antsy moment I had wherein I was looking for accommodation and didn't get it. So that is that. Then you mentioned many in body, one in mind.
Correct.
Would love to build it upon this.
Yeah, I think basically when you're heading a team, particularly any person who's in charge of a team has to take the entire team along. You will have people from different backgrounds, different interest levels, different experience levels. And if you have a problem, everyone will try and solve it in a different way. But if the leader is able to bring everyone on the same page, that this is the goal, guys and girls, this is what we want to achieve. Now, I'm very open to listen to everyone's ideas, but at the end of the day, we have to collectively decide what we're going to do. And then even if that's a bit risky or that's a bit controversial or that's a bit, we haven't tried this before, we still have to go and execute it and do it together. And once we start that journey, you can't say, मैंने आपको कहा था ऐसा होना चाहिए और आपने कहा था कि I have to do it differently. We'll all stick to the same game plan and do our very best. So I've seen that that really works, whether it's in the theater. Imagine if there are 8 actors, each one trying to do the same scene differently. You have to be connected. So I believe a lot in investing the dynamics of a team together, getting them to agree to a goal, and everyone also understanding their responsibility without stepping on anyone's toes, or also not assuming that, oh, Saurabh's going to do this, so why should I do this? So that's what I meant by, many in body, because we can come from different backgrounds and have different ideas. But one in mind means with one goalpost, one common ambition. Like you said, we have to make sure this student succeeds. This student has a positive experience, because that's going to be, he or she is then going to be my ambassador for future. I may have 99 great stories, but if one story goes really wrong, then that can destroy everything. So I try and practice that wherever, there is a teamwork involved, that everybody should be focused on the same goal and work collectively towards it.
So just for audience, so I guess another thing which we follow the same thing. So I'm also a part of, a philosophy called Nichiren Buddhism. And Vivek, I've been practicing for 17 years. He's been practicing for 30 years. So definitely he's been, much senior. And this is another Western interest. I didn't know that we will bring this up, but the moment you bought this, this concept,
Yeah.
I couldn't stop myself, because I believe that we've been fortunate enough to get introduced to this early in our life. And because it's not religion, it's a philosophy. Anything you want to talk about this, and then we'll go to your next step or next phase of your journey?
Sure. So I think what we follow, as you said, in Nichiren Buddhism is really a life philosophy. It's to really understand who you are as a person. What is your mission in life? So I may be working in the education sector. I may be a theater artist. I may be a doctor, lawyer, dancer, whatever. But what is my true mission in life? And I think from whatever I've understood from this practice and philosophy is to be happy, and also to make others happy. So whatever it takes to do that, I think we discover through these Buddhist concepts that we study regularly, the kind of prayers that we do, the kind of prayers that we do for other people, is to really make the world a better place, that everyone should be peaceful and everyone's happiness and lives are interconnected. And that's what the organization also, all the organizations I've worked with, whether British Council, Ford Foundation, or IIE now, it's all believing that the world is interconnected. So those who have more resources need to make that available to people who don't. Now, whether it's economic resources, emotional resources, intelligence resources, human resources, whatever it is, to make it an equal place. Because if you're unhappy and I'm happy, at some stage, it's going to change around, right? Yeah. And also this philosophy tells us a lot about the causes that one makes are going to come back in your life sooner or later to either reward you or to bite you. So continue making good causes in thought, word, and action, and that's what's going to come back to you. So I feel very fortunate that this philosophy, which focuses on the pillars of peace, culture, and education, also resonates with what I've done in my life. So culture, because of my theater; education, because I've worked in that sector all my life; and also peace, because I think through this, I get a lot of inner peace and external peace, and I feel that this movement helps to contribute to world peace as well. So I've always said that I've had this double or triple track career in my life, walking on the tracks of peace, culture, and education.
So just to take a cue out of it, again, to all the audience, everyone, either who are looking to get into a job or they're already in a See, I've been talking to lots of people who've been doing really well in their life, especially in this space, in this
Mhm.
education, higher education space and education space, and very clear pattern. All the people are doing really well. They've been in the industry for many years, and they've been in the organization for at least 5, 10, 15 years, and that's where they've been getting so much of opportunities because they've been earning respect. They've been not just moving from one pole to another for few extra bucks. You know,
Mhm.
I know in today's generation it's it's instant gratification, and and then we've been fortunate to read about you know a concept called beauty of job.
Yeah.
We want to emphasize that because another audience, which is another vested interest. I'm running an organization, so I keep telling that there's always advantage of being staying in a particular role, and definitely in an organization, and definitely in the same industry.
Yeah.
So it's like compound in compound interest. But unfortunately, there are lots of people talking about, oh, keep changing,
Mhm.
keep exploring, and keep like do things which till then you're not happy.
Right.
But it takes time to realize, and rather than just changing places, if you are in the same place and try to make an impact, and then don't and then you can move. But before moving, ensure that you have done your bit,
Mhm.
you know and I'm sure you can put this in a better way than me. So I'm taking the opportunity to learn from you and to our audience.
Well, like you said, I've been very lucky and I've always had each of my jobs for about a decade. Like 10 years is a good time to then assess if you want to move on. And like I said, I wasn't looking to move anytime. Somehow these opportunities came my way and I felt, okay, this is something different, more challenging. Itna ho gaya, let's move on. But I know the young generation probably today, a lot of them want to get a lot of experiences, like 1 year, 2 year. So unless there's a situational reason, economic, or you're moving home, or there's a family reason or a financial reason, it's okay to move. But otherwise, I think it's good to get your grounding in one organization because we have to be serious about, a workplace is not just a workplace. It is the land of our mission. We have to do something in that space. Now, 1 year, 2 years is not enough. 5 years, 10 years, or more, many of us have done more, is an area where we can actually understand what that organization truly is, go along on its journey, and also fundamentally change something within our own lives. So the reason I'm working in an organization is not because only I got that job. Uh, I mean, putting the Buddhist concept again, I'm karmically in the environment of those people, whether it's my boss, whether it's my employees, whether it's the stakeholders and the clients and the customers I meet. So I have some kind of a relationship with them from my past life. So I need to fix certain things. I need to be able to connect with them, sort out, negative and positive energies that we've had together. And apart from that, I think it's also to be able to really contribute in an organization, you have to spend time. It takes 1 or 2 years to really understand. Then you come up with your strategy. Then you come up with changes that are happening in the world all the time. We've had pandemics, we've had national policies being changed, etc., etc. So I would suggest, as far as possible, to stick to an organization if you're by and large happy and your employers are also happy with you. To try and get a grounding. It's like going to school and college. You go to school for 10 years, 12 years, you graduate, you feel so good. Imagine going to school for 2 years. So I think people who've had that experience of going two years to different schools, it sounds great that,
But they
okay,
couldn't get the best out of that.
yeah, possibly not. Possibly not. So I think look at each job as a new school or college education that you're going to.
So refreshing. So refreshing.
Yeah,
On the other side, everyone keeps saying that, I hate this word employee, so I call it team, even not in team
sure.
members, I call them army. But from a employer point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and there's lots of philosophy like, fire fast, fire fast, if it doesn't work, just don't try to cut,
Mm-hmm.
what any message for other side of the table, for the employers and some like me. We've been very fortunate that I say fortunate because we went through COVID.
Right.
We went through slowdown. Fortunately, in last 10 years of building UL, somehow we navigated in a way wherein we couldn't get we have not been in a position where we need to, fire or ping slips and all. If there's a
Cut down.
performance
Yeah.
issue, it's a different thing, but it's not without their fault. So how we've been fortunate, but that also then I have lots of, like, we are also a for profit organization.
Yeah.
They are investors and they are finances and accounts and numbers. How to go about for employer point of view that wherein if we are asking our team members to stick around and be around, why this thought is coming to me, so far we have been fortunate not to get in a position where we need to ask people to leave probably within 3 months, 6 months, right? Especially the senior management teams and leaders, right? Off lately, there are a couple of incidents happened wherein 8-9 months and it was still not working,
Right.
and eventually as a management we have to decide to cut, right? So somewhere that pinch is there, so how to go about that?
So I think that obviously varies from industry to industry, but in the kind of sector that I've worked in, education, which has been philanthropy, non-government organizations, I've always worked with international entities. I think they believe a lot in investing in the human capital and resource. They appreciate the person for what they bring on, and they give a lot of learning opportunities. And they want to train people and they want to take us along with them for years. So I've had the good fortune of working with organizations that have been around for decades. And they expect that kind of loyalty. They expect that kind of growth with that person and the organization together. They, especially those who are leading teams, those who are in more senior roles, they see the value of that person staying longer, because that person then represents the education sector for that entity. And it's not good if the education leader keeps changing every 1 year, 2 years, there's a new person. So there's a lot of advantage in longevity, in continuity, in the institutional memory. So if I've worked for 10 years at, let's say, IIE, that I know a lot of things that have happened and I can retain that. Whereas every year if there's a new person coming in my role, he or she will also not be able to carry that forward. But that also means that as an employer, I need to make the job exciting. I need to create more opportunities, not just financially rewarding, but whether it's traveling, whether it's attending conferences, some professional development, some mentoring from senior colleagues, maybe a work exchange opportunity going to another country or to another region, working there. We have at the IIE also, professional growth opportunities where we can take on a course or a study. I want to polish certain skills and learn more about the education sector. So one has to constantly invest. There are a lot of affinity groups, like I'm part of the DEIA affinity group, where I contribute my ideas, and I started this initiative at IIE on mental health and well-being. Like we bring employees together and discuss, what is troubling people in the workspace, what is troubling people in their own environments. So it's about talent building. So especially in the education is about what? It's about lifelong skills. It's not about education because we have 10 scholarships to offer. Now, iske baad, I have nothing more to do with you. Am I really genuinely invested in that individual and what he or she is dedicating 8-10 hours a day every day to my organization? How much am I respecting that person's time, talent? And when he or she leaves my company or my organization, will he go back a richer person? So am I interested in that? Not everyone thinks like that. But if you have that attitude, perhaps, what can I teach the younger people? What can I teach the new people? I think that would really help them change the approach with which we have, not a transactional approach, but generally more like a mentor and a mentee approach.
Very true.
That would work.
Very true. And while I was listening to you, the first thought came, यार आपको तो इंटरनेशनल अच्छे इंस्टीट्यूट मिल गए, अच्छी कंपनी मिल गई, आप ऐसी कंपनी में काम किया जहाँ पे they were multi-decade and they have lots of funds to invest in people,
Sure.
right? But the second thought was, no, you started with British Council. You have started like your first job, and right from the bottom to you have reached there, right? So this was my second thought. And then my third was when you were talking that, no, wait on, so what about our today Gen Z who is probably undergrad or someone who have just passed out from a good institute or a mid I would say average institute?
Sure.
And what about someone who have gone abroad and now come back? What about them? Because see, in our journey, you're more senior than me. We still believe in the term called royalty. We still believe in the term called respect for a senior. Today's generation, and I'm not saying that they are wrong, but everyone evolving culturally like that, Instagram, and they, in fact, they are smarter than many of us.
Sure.
I always say that they're smarter because they have more information, and probably we come from a background wherein for us it was survival. For them it's thrive. or probably they already been privileged, right? What about them? How they see, whether they should join a bigger company, or and then take their time and set their foundation and grow with the organization, or with these startups, wherein there is uncertainty, but then also opportunity to grow faster and probably get more exposure versus working with the organization wherein you're sticking around, you are getting opportunities, but it's a bit slow.
Well, like I said, I've been with organizations for long stints of time, grown with the organization, seen that journey grow. And I wouldn't necessarily jump jobs just because someone was offering me, $100 more. But I think the demands of the current generation are different. Also, jobs are evolving in a different way now than they were probably in our time. There are so many new jobs. In fact, whatever we studied, or even the young people today are studying, may not be jobs that are relevant in 2013, 2014.
Right.
So if someone feels that they need to move for career advancement, or they're learning something new, or they're getting an opportunity that they're not getting in their current organization, then I feel it's worth considering job hopping or job jumping. But if it's only for financial rewards, I would say not. It's better to stay where you are, learn and grow with that organization, climb to as far as you can. If you're getting stuck, then move. But don't just have this target every 6 months or every 9 months to move on. And of course, it's great to get an opportunity in a good established organization. There's some kind of security there that the company won't shut down, but it's equally great. And I know I have my nephews in Bombay, at least one of them, who's now graduating and wanting to get into the workspace, and he's been talking about joining the startup industry and some new younger organizations, and that's great. If you want to ideate, if you want to come up with new ideas and you want to learn for a few years, I think it's great to do that.
I was about to ask, what would love to know more about your immediate family, and what will you suggest to your son, daughter, nephew, or your best friends, like kids?
So I'm single. I live alone in Delhi. I have a brother who's married with two young, lovely boys. My nephew's in Bombay. And my advice to them is always to definitely study in India for at least your undergraduate degree. And unfortunately, they had to do that because of COVID. They couldn't relocate. That's when their college was starting and so on. They had to complete it here. Establish your basics here. Establish and understand, experience college life as much as you can here. And then if you want to go for 2 years, 3 years abroad to study, to get global education, maybe even work abroad for a certain time and come back, that's great. Earlier, there were a lot of undergraduate students going from India after class 10, class 12, doing the SAT and TOEFL and IELTS and so on, which is also great. But I think times are changing. I mean, the trend also that the Open Doors report that IIE's brought out, that India is the largest sending country to the US of 330,000 students last year. And the majority of them are going for master's degrees, so postgraduate degrees, not undergrad.
Yeah.
And I think that's a trend that's growing. I think it's important for someone who's 20, 21 to spend those first 2 decades in your home country, like in India. Great. Go to a good school, go do well, figure out what you really want to do in your undergraduate degree, whether it's computer science, whether it's mathematics, whether it's the arts, whether it's medicine or engineering, and then go abroad for higher training, possibly advanced training. So my advice would be to make the most of both worlds. Don't diss whatever you have here, because India has great opportunities. Of course, there's much less of a supply than there is the demand for good quality education. That's also a challenge, but I know the government is trying to deal with that. But if you do have a good university or college program to go to, I would suggest do that here, work alongside, do some internships, understand the lay of your own country first before you go overseas.
I agree, and it's like a personal discussion happening, because for the longest time I have the same thought that do your master undergrad here, and then work for a year or two, and then if you feel the need of postgrad or a upgrade on your education or your skills, then go out. Then I have been talking to few really good success stories of who have gone for the undergrad,
Right.
and they have the very clear understanding that they want to go and they want to settle.
Yeah.
And because they've gone for undergrad, they spend more time understanding the ecosystem. Not only they got good jobs, but they also got their PRs and green cards and all.
Sure.
And deep inside, I believe in this space that it's too expensive to go abroad, and it's counter to what I'm talking and what I'm working on. But I believe for us, I suggest everyone that it's very important to move out from your comfort zone. I
Hmm.
mean, like for me, it's just sheer, serendipity that I came from Delhi, from Meerut to Delhi, then did my undergrad here, got an opportunity to go abroad and have some stint, and it's broadened my mind,
Hmm.
But if someone asks me what will I do for my daughter, who I call Faith,
Yeah.
you know, same thought that probably I'll ask them to do a undergrad from here, work for a couple of years, and then if they feel the need of upgrade, then
Sure.
go abroad. At the same time, if she's very clear that no, don't want to stay in India, I want to settle in US, then the earlier the possible. And if you afford.
Yeah, I mean, that's an individual choice. It's
Hmm.
a family choice, a collective decision. Some students are really, really bright and want to access high quality education
Hmm.
right from their bachelor's
Right.
level,
Right.
and maybe their family situation
Yes.
allows them the fund. So it's fine. I'm not being judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, I think kids need to mature before they go outside. Of course, young kids now are maturing much faster than we did, and
For
they know
sure.
everything at 13 that we may not even know at 31. But I think it's situational. But what I'm saying is, India does have high quality education
It's getting better,
available.
for sure.
Let's enjoy that. Let's encourage that. If you're not getting a slot because of certain quotas and restrictions and high marking system, and you want to eventually go abroad and settle, then of course, the sooner you go, the better.
Better.
Why hang around here? Why take up a spot that another Indian student is also hankering after?
Makes sense.
So I think it's very individual. Also, you have to assess the capability and aptitude of the student. So as a father, I won't tell my son or my nephew that you have to go. If that person doesn't have cross-cultural skills, if that person is uncomfortable in a foreign environment. Students in the last few years have had to deal with so much with the pandemic. They don't want to leave their parents and their siblings behind and go away to a foreign clime. And then what's happening abroad is governments are shutting down, they're sending students back. There's so much happening now with new administration in the US. There's a lot of a fear factor that what is Trump 2.0 going to be actually doing. So there's that kind of uncertainty as well. But I think it's an individual choice depending on financial situation, the kind of connections you have overseas, and the urgency with which you want to send someone to get a foreign degree and maybe even work there. It's situational.
So coming on probably the next phase, 2017, you got into
IIE.
Institute of International Education, and people were not familiar. And I also have a very true understanding, how you got into this,
Sure.
what they do, and how they're doing it, and about IIE mission and why they exist.
Sure. So IIE is basically, as you said correctly, Institute of International Education. This is a non-profit registered in the US. We're headquartered in New York. And this started in the year 1919. It was founded by a whole team of Nobel Prize winners in the US who were looking at the world becoming connected at that time. As you can imagine, 106 years ago, it wasn't in terms of exchanging ideas, exchanging intellectual projects. So IIE was set up exactly what the name is, international education, promoting international education and exchange. So sending people out from the US and bringing people into the US is its chief kind of area. And the reason is that because everything, as we said earlier, is collaborative. We have to all work together and solve the world's problems. There were problems 100 years ago, there are problems now, and there will be another 100 years ago. So over the years, IIE has grown into a global company, a not-for-profit, and we have about 18 offices worldwide. I work in the India office, which is in New Delhi, and we look after our projects and programs in India and South Asia. So basically, we don't have our own funds. What we do is we design and implement projects on behalf of governments, such as the US government, corporates, foundations, philanthropies, educational partners. So they come to us primarily to design fellowship and scholarship programs, which could be short-term, long-term, international mobility or not. And we run those programs for them, such as the Fulbright program, the Gilman program. We manage the Quad program for, the 4-country governments, several programs like that. But we also work in the area of partnerships. We also bring together universities, whether it's faculty, students, to sign MOUs, to sign agreements, to connect with each other, because we want to make the world a smaller place by bringing ideas together. We also are known a lot for our research, evaluation, and learning work. So we bring out a report each year, which is called Open Doors. which actually tracks the numbers of students going to the US from each country each year and from the US going overseas every year. So this is like a Bible. It's like a survey and an instrument that everybody uses to track the numbers of students. What are the trends? What are the policies that can be, formed looking at the numbers of students? We bring out another report called Project Atlas, which does the same thing with other country data. Project Atlas. Yeah. So all other countries, their data of incoming and outgoing mobility. We also do a lot of research and evaluation on education programs. We've helped universities set up campuses. We also collect a lot of funding because we're an old and trusted organization for students in distress, in emergency. Been so many world crises over the years. We protect artists, we protect scholars, we help them to be able to complete their education in a foreign environment, take them out of their war-torn or conflict areas and take them to much safer areas. So these are the kinds of projects and programs that we manage and administer. And we're certainly one of the oldest players in the world of international higher education.
So coming back to IIE, as you were talking about, why IIE exists, you talk about, one of the oldest, player, I would say, OGs and, pioneer in international education. And then you come up with reports, you do lots of research, and come up with lots of data, lots of trends and patterns have been following up with you. What was your reason of being part of IIE and what's next?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, in 2017, I was still with the British Council. We just done the UK-India Year of Culture, which is a big high. And I was kind of missing working in the education sector. And this opportunity came along because the previous director of IIE India, she was relocating. She was moving out of Delhi. And they were looking for someone to fill her shoes. And I'd known her for a while and as a good friend. And she said, would you be interested? I said, you know what, I'm working in the arts, but maybe it's time to go back to education. Why don't I meet your senior team in the US? So I did. I applied for the role and I was interviewed and it seemed like a great job going back because I was going to be the country director for a program and an entire office. So that was a promotion for me in one sense. And also the kind of work that IIE's done over the years was very impressive. The Ford Foundation program that I had worked on earlier, also we had links with IIE. So I knew about them for a very long time. I'd even been to their offices earlier in the US. So it seemed like a great idea and I applied. The British Council was very upset that I was leaving, as they were earlier when I was leaving for the Ford Foundation. I've always had great relationships with all my previous employers and bosses. I still get invited to all their events. So I just feel it's a fluid space. You don't have to burn bridges. You don't have to break relationships. It's whether it's arts or culture or education, it's all one big industry. Today I'm working with you. Today I'm your boss. Tomorrow you may be my boss, etc., etc. So one just has to do one's best, have a lot of respect, have a lot of gratitude, and be prepared for whatever may happen next. So in that kind of spirit, I think I joined IIE. And it's been 7 years. It's been great. I think I have a great India team. I have a great global team. One learns a lot working with people. And despite the pandemic, I was appreciated that this organization continued to grow. We had work. In fact, our CEO, Dr. Alan Goodman, who's a very well-respected luminary in the education field, he says that, IIE has survived 9 pandemics over these 100-odd years. And each time international education has bounced back. Stronger, bigger, better. Of course, there'll be new ways. There will be some changes. Everything's not going to be exactly the same. And I think that kind of gives me a lot of hope that this organization instills a lot of hope. It also appreciates talent. It gives us flexibility. It gives us autonomy. I feel very valued in the organization. So I think it kind of resonates with all the ethics and values that I have in my own life. So I enjoy working here.
You mentioned that, you've been part of IIE, it's been 7 years, and whatever you share that, okay, you do this, that, this. So someone like me, or let's say someone like any institute or any organization who is part of education or higher education wants to work with IIE, and because IIE is all about collaboration, partnerships, right? How can someone engage and reach out to you guys?
Well, you have our website. All our details are there. We are a small team in India at the moment, but we're completing 20 years this year in 2025. So we are looking at expanding. We are looking at more contracts with certain American universities. So to have more representatives for those universities in India working out of our office. These are universities who may not necessarily want to set up a full-scale office.
More like a market entry.
Yeah, market
Okay.
entry.
Yeah.
But advising them not only on recruitment issues, but on various other strategies, policies, building their alumni network, looking at study abroad, bringing their students here, looking at helping them with partnerships as well. That's a big role now that we play in. And IIE has been known to bring delegations from the US to other countries and also take delegations of university leaders, academics to back to the US and encouraging collaboration. So we work also with the US Embassy, the consulates and other partners across. So, I mean, there are certain opportunities that keep coming up every year. We'd love to expand our team. We're also moving very soon to a new office space. And it's going to be an exciting journey. Yeah, we're looking, it's only been 20 years here. There's a lot going on. I think after NEP, there's been a lot of interest from US universities in particular to collaborate with India. And they feel, they feel that comfortable that they have an American partner like IIE in India. So they trust the organization. They value what we can bring to the table. And of course, there are so many players in the field, and I think we should just help and collaborate with one another. And one thing I really picked up recently is it's not about competition, it's really about collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's the students, it's the faculty, it's the making the world a better place. Why are we in the education sector?
In fact, we all can coexist. I always say that gone are the days of competition. It has to be collaboration. And with collaboration, you are using less resources to increase the pie versus competing to take
a little bit of
more of that small pie.
Yeah. It's pointless.
It's pointless. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we also work very closely with the US State Department on the Education USA campaign. So all the Education USA advisors, which are called the REAC role, are all IIE staff members. So we have a person here who's our REAC in India and South Asia. REAC, a Regional Education Advising Coordinator. So this person actually trains all the education advisors of the Education USA offices. In India, you have USIEF, which houses all the Education USA centers and counselors. But the REAC role is a role that is an IIE role, reporting directly to the State Department. So we work a lot with the major players around the world. We also collaborate a lot with the British Council, with DAAD, with the European Union organizations. We take part in several conferences, whether it's NAFSA, AIEA, the API conference that's coming up now in New Delhi in March this year. So we are regarded as a content partner, as a valued partner in many kind of projects and programs. Where our senior leadership is on several boards that are implementing policy, taking decisions, including a lot of American organizations. So it's a really vast network. And almost all universities and colleges in the US are part of what's called the IIE network. And I'm also thinking, in our 20th year here, if we can start some kind of an IIE network with all of the Indian institutions here, whether we can offer them certain services or certain information or resources online. So I'm trying to explore how we can get the word out more there.
Interesting. How big is the team in India?
We're about 10 of us here. It's a small team at the moment.
Small but impactful team.
Hopefully.
Yes. And these days I'm in a mindset of having less people, but having better, more sharper and more hungry people than you.
Yeah.
At least as a leader, it gives you so much of superpower and bandwidth to do lots of things which are more impactful. But coming back to your story, is it fair to say that for you, UK and US is being mostly the case? Because there is other countries, there is so much new countries like Europe coming in.
Yeah.
And the second question will be, what's your take on international education from India?
Mm-hmm.
Whether the trends will be same of Indian student going to US, what gonna be the trends for Indian student going to UK, especially with caps in Canada and caps in Australia, or at least things are not that smooth what it used to be 2 years back.
Right.
So what's your take on international education patterns and development?
I mean, yes, I've worked with primarily UK and US as the lead countries because of my organizations. But as I mentioned to you, when I was with the Ford Foundation, we were sending scholars all over the world. So I got to understand education in different countries. We worked with partners and universities in different countries. And also at IIE, because we're a global entity, although the headquarters is in US, we have offices all over the world, in Mexico, in Africa, in Thailand, Indonesia, China. We used to have offices in Moscow, which are now in Almaty, and we have offices in Kiev. So I get to interact along with my counterparts in all these countries and offices. So I get to understand firsthand what's happening. And of course, we track trends not only of US and India, but all countries. The Open Doors report is for all countries. Project Atlas is all countries. So in that sense, I feel, I do know a little bit about other countries.
I'm
but
sure you know a lot.
maybe a little more about US and UK per se. So that's in terms of my own background and understanding. Coming to global trends and international trends, I think US, for some reason, has been the number one spot of receiving international students, especially from India, which has now beaten China as well.
Why so?
I think Indian students particularly are looking for high quality education where they are getting the world's best cutting edge technology, research labs, and they have the independence to change subjects, do a cross-disciplinary study rather than just go and study biology. They have that opportunity in the US at 4,000 institutions, which is the largest number anywhere, number one. Number two, they also get to do OPT, optional practical training, and then maybe stay on to work for some time and get that practical experience. Of course, things and policies are changing all the time and lots of rumors. So a number of them are looking at that ROI. So if I'm going to spend 4 years of an undergrad or 2 years of a master's degree, spending, let's say, $100,000 or more than that, am I also going to get the opportunity to work and get that money back? So OPT is another big area. Also, over the years, there have been so many students and families who've gone to the US. So US feels like home. Earlier, we used to say only the UK and European countries feel like home because of our joint history with, Britain and so on. But now with US also, there are so many, you've seen success stories. And when an Indian student sees the success stories of Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai or an Indira Nui who have risen from the ranks and gone up to be CEOs, they feel it's a land of opportunity. Whereas in some other countries, there is still a bit of that factor of, will we be appreciated? Will we be second-class citizens? Will there be racism? Will there be certain... So I think a host of reasons, and US keeps inventing and making them themselves a welcoming destination in various ways. I mean, even Education USA is a free service that's provided anyone. You don't have to necessarily go and pay large sums of money to get information. So I think on those counts, US has continued to be a large receiving country. Destination. It's like the American dream. And I'm hoping that continues over the years, despite governments changing and stuff. And I don't think the present new government is going to do radically anything different to reduce the numbers of Indian students because they see the success. I mean, international students are 6% of America's overall student population, and they contribute, from what I believe our latest report, $50 billion, right? So that's a large number. So whether it's whoever's the president or in charge can't necessarily just swipe these students away and wish them away. So I think those are the trends. But having said that, there are so many other countries that are coming up, smaller countries. There's France, there's Germany, there's New Zealand, there's some Middle Eastern countries, there's China, there's Japan that are bouncing back. I think the pandemic taught a lot of things to various universities. People were out of jobs, professors were out of roles and so on. I think people have had a lot of rethinking to do, and they've also understand that opening borders is very important. So people are upping their game, upping their act. It's not, again, about giving competition to the US. US doesn't need that competition, but increasing their own revenue, increasing their own cross-cultural understanding. So China will remain China if only Chinese students are studying there. But if they get others, there'll be so much more of cross-cultural exchange, osmosis happening, faculty learning on joint research projects. So I think a lot of countries and governments are waking up to that fact, as you said earlier, that it's all about collaboration. So, and that's great for Indian students. Not everyone wants to go to the US or can afford US. US is expensive by and large if you're going to a top college. So there are lots of other opportunities, scholarship opportunities. So I think Indian students at least should welcome that. And again, you have to be competitive and have high scores to get into good colleges. Whereas certain other areas, you may not need to do that.
Absolutely true. Totally agree. Or any question for us, or me, or university living?
Yeah, I think first of all, the fact that you've set this up, and this is a great service that you're providing to students. I've, from my experience, having briefed and done pre-departure for students from the British Council, from the Ford Foundation, and even IIE, I know that someone's going to live somewhere for 2 years, 4 years, or even longer is a huge kind of suspense in one's mind, and the parents as well. They have to be sure that you're going to get this, and from the word go. So I'm just trying to understand what motivated you to set this up, and what has been your greatest success story so far for UL?
Again, I've been an entrepreneur, been very passionate about this, and again, something which, I've been absolutely lucky. I never thought I'd be part of education. In fact, now we are part of three industry:
Mm-hmm.
education, travel, and, technology or content.
Okay.
Right? As a startup, these are three pillars for me: tech, content, and, is education.
Right.
What motivates me, again, as you mentioned, you're a detailed planner. I'm totally opposite. I believe in going with the flow. I am very spontaneous, but yes, probably we've been fortunate to work very hard, and things start happening. But I went to UK, for my exchange program when I was doing my masters. No one told me, and I never asked anyone that what will I do once I'm there. I was so excited to just go there,
Mhm.
and because I went for an exchange program in January, there were no accommodation, and I reached there and I'm like, where to stay? You're still like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have not booked anything. And they were like, okay, we can provide you 2 nights, and then please manage your own. Very, very great, grateful. And they were very supportive that I got 2 nights,
Right.
but those 2 nights, I still get a goosebumps that there were no pillow, there were no duvet. It was January. It was
Mhm.
very cold, and I was clueless. And I was like, still in my early 20s, right? And then I realized, oh, it's not easy. Everyone talk about admission. Everyone talk about taking GREs and SATs and IELTS, but no one talk about accommodation. And then I came back. I completed my masters. I got I got placed with my campus into one of the finance company in India. But lots of my friends, family keep reaching out to me.
Mhm.
Okay, you went to Nottingham. What happened? How did you go to your company? I'm like, okay,
Right.
there is some loose ends and something which can build up. But while I was a banker in the morning, and in the evening I was like working 7-8 hours, building this up. And one thing led to another. So that's how we started.
Mhm.
So it was absolutely serendipity, and probably, as I call it, we are chosen one, because I went through this and then I came for merit. So every year I have opportunity or a privilege to move places.
Mm.
And I know it's not easy. It's not a good feeling. That you don't know where you'll be staying after a month,
Right.
taking all your things across. And that was only for merit to Delhi. But from Delhi to Nottingham and in UK, it was different, right? And then I had a roommate, who's my co-founder, Mayank. He went to Nottingham. He went to Northampton. I'm like, and like a dude, like, I know it. I have figured this out. Book from here. Get your accommodation done, and you'll be better off. He booked everything from here. He booked with a very cool English couple,
Mm.
when he had paid everything up front. The breakfast was 7 in the morning. The dinner was spread at 5 in the evening, and Indian don't eat at 5,
Yeah.
right? So it was a torrid time for him. We started, and then we got our CFO, whose daughter is in Sydney.
Okay.
In spite of working with us and we were working, it was embarrassing that they still didn't get their accommodation because they didn't ask. They're like, university will get, because that was even if someone
Assumption.
asks that what to go about accommodation, the first thing will be, I apply to university halls and I get it.
Right.
But the real numbers are only 1 or 6 students get accommodation for university. That's 15-16%. Around 85% students are on themselves. They need to find them on their own. So this is what I got into this. This is the motivation that, okay, there are 80 million students who are looking for accommodation all
Right.
across the globe. If they're international students, they are in a bigger soup. And if the Indian students, wherein the trends are, first let get our visa done, then we talk about accommodation. It's
Mm.
too late. So these are few things which, in fact, by the
Encouraged you. Yeah.
absolute, and even by this channel of podcast or research reports we talk about, with the same thought that someone need to talk about accommodation. And if we are a chosen one, let's do everything in our capacity to make people at least be aware. And then we are here to provide information.
Right.
I always said if they don't want to book through us, it's fine. But they need to start early, and they need to look beyond University Hall. So that's our,
Journey,
our
yeah.
motivation, our journey.
Amazing. And what's been your biggest success story so far?
Every day is a success story. Sitting with you is a success story. Having all those milestones, awards and everything is a success story. But I believe one thing which I'm very, very happy about. So I know there's a kid, who started their internship with us, while reading another very good, decent university in India, in Noida itself. So he was studying in Bennett University, and he did an internship with us for 2 months. Once he completed his undergrad, he worked with us for 2 years.
Okay.
While he was working with us for 2 years, he got 100% scholarship for University of Liverpool. And when he went there, he was our student ambassador, working with us for 2 years, 1 year, 1.5 years, while he was completing masters. Post that, we hired him, and he was very supportive of being part of working and representing University Living. And now, last 2 months back, we have also sponsored his UK job. So I guess that's a perfect story of anyone who is looking to learn skills, who want to get best out of education and international education.
Right.
And it's not us, it's him who trusted us and continue to add value in whatever role he been given. So that's, I would say, that story always stand out. And he from
Yeah.
Patna.
Okay.
He lost his father off lately, managing his, full family, and it's emotional for me, but all credit to him.
Amazing.
So yeah.
That's what sets things apart in the education sector. When you see people transforming their lives and wanting to give back,
Yes,
that's the real success.
absolutely. So coming on a fun part, I guess we have spoken lots of serious stuff and lots of, numbers and data and patterns.
Okay.
Let's end this session with rapid fire round. And I'm not Karanjo, there are no hampers.
That's
There are
nice.
always blessings.
Okay. Okay.
So if you weren't leading II India, what you would be doing?
If I was not leading IIE India, I think I would be acting in a Bollywood film.
Oh, what kind of movies?
Something fun, emotional, human drama. I like playing strong characters.
Why are you in India, Delhi? You should be in Mumbai.
I should, but
Don't you think that you're probably after this? You never
who
know.
knows? I think my mission has been here in Delhi. First in Calcutta for half my life, then in Delhi for half my life. Who knows where the remaining part will be? But I enjoy being on stage. That's why I said I'd love to be acting as well. If I was not doing a full-time job, I love my job. I don't want it to be taken away. But I would love being on stage or in a film. Yeah.
What's one lesson from your career that you will never forget?
I think to persevere. If you're not happy about a certain situation, or whether it's a person in your environment, it's a project, it's a program, or the opportunity, or just your own organization, you have to understand that you're here for a reason, that you have to go through that suffering for a while. So as they say, enjoy what there is to enjoy, suffer what there is to suffer. So that's what I said earlier. Don't just move from job to job to job, because your pattern will keep emerging even in the next job. So persevere, persevere, persevere. Get out of that complex where you're feeling bad about yourself, where you're feeling sorry for yourself. Win in that situation and then get out and move. So that's
golden words. If you could meet any historical figure for a coffee,
okay.
who would it be?
Historical or literary, maybe even. I think I'd love to meet William Shakespeare and ask him to write a new script for me.
You are ICSC product. So
Yes.
which all sexual word you have read?
Shakespeare scripts. I've read a lot, but I think in our curriculum we had Julius Caesar, we had A Midsummer Night's Dream, we had Richard III. Yeah, so I've studied those in school, but I've obviously read a lot of the other plays.
Merchant of Venice and
Yes, Merchant of Venice.
Tempest.
I've also acted in a play called Othello, which we've traveled all over the world and performed and won several awards in Edinburgh as well.
Wow. What's your dream superpower?
Dream superpower. help others find their hidden talent.
If you could give a message to a next generation of leaders or younger generation, what would it be?
I would say that everyone is born with a unique mission. Don't compare yourself to others and say, I also want to be like him, I want to be like her. And this generation, all of us in this generation with the Insta culture easily get swayed, and we feel small if you're not at the red carpet and a 5-star party, etc., etc. But we all have a mission. You have to work hard and really look inside to explore the reason you are on this planet and what can you give back to society. We really have to be grateful for every day that we are alive and not feel sorry that someone else has more of this and more of that. But okay, I've got so much. What can I give back so that I create value? So it's all about creating value on a daily basis.
That's from my side. Anything you want to ask or you want to wrap up, I'm all good because I'm enjoying this session. I am very greedy, when I get someone who is better, smarter, ahead of the journey. So to absorb as much as I can. But I'm done.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and learning about your journey. It's very inspiring, you and your colleagues, your entire fabulous team. So I wish you all the best, and I hope we can collaborate in some way.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, I think education is a tool which is going to transform every person's life.
Totally agree.
And we should support that in whichever way we can.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Great. That's a wrap. And thank you for if you have been with us so far. That's almost 1.5 hours. So thank you for your time. And I hope we are creating value. I'll please keep sharing your feedback, comment, and be as brutal. As I keep saying that we're not doing for news and views. I'm not making money out of it. But yes, what I've been making out of it is lots of friends, lots of industry leaders I'm meeting. And through this journey, if we are able to put across any good content or any good lessons for all of you who've been watching it to learn, to grow, to understand the different facet of international education industry, or for that matter, entrepreneurship, or for that matter, just about life. It will be great to get your feedback. If you like, please do share with one person. If you didn't like, still share and probably make a mock out of it that, if this is doing a podcast, anyone can do. And I totally tell everyone that content creation or a distribution is a superpower. The earlier you build this up, the better it is. So on that note, thank you so much, and let's continue to meet. Thank you.